Hi players, bonjour from Paris, my name is Asaf and welcome to my channel Easy Board Games. Today we're going to have an overview and a preview for Asylum Below. That is a new game from Awaken Realms. I'm going to attach a link to the Gamefound campaign page down below, so feel free to check it out. And just before we're getting started, let me just tell you that this is just a prototype, and I'm going to repeat it at least 2 or 3 more times during the video. So the components here are still a subject for change. We don't have all the content for this game yet, and also the rulebook is still work in progress. So while most of the rules are already laid down and the basics are probably going to stay the same, I'm not going to dive too much into the rules just because I don't think there's a lot of point in that. And with that, you guys, let's dive in and see what Asylum is all about. Asylum Below is a fully cooperative board game for 1 to 4 players. Of course, you'll be able to play this solo as well. Again, because this is a prototype, we're going to have only 2 characters that I'm going to present a little bit later just because they're a little bit to the side. But in general, the story behind this is that we're playing special agents with supernatural power that are working for an agency that is called BELOW. That is the initials for Bureau of Exorcism, Liminality, and Occult Warfare. Yeah, I guess I just said that. So in this game, we have basically 2 worlds. The world that is above, that is the normal world just as we know it. Well, normal, as you're going to about to see. And also we have the below, that is basically another twisted, a bit more sick version of the world as we know it. This is what we can see on the right side of the board. Now, through different actions that I'm going to talk about just in a few more moments, we will need to collect some ritual components in order to perform rituals. Now, with that, those rituals are going to award seals that we're going to start placing over here in these 2 rings that you can see in the middle. And it's all necessary in order to reach the final seal, which is the one in the middle. That is going to imprison the Monarch, which is the arch enemy that we have over here. I'm going to attach a few photos during the video, so you'll be able to see the components a little bit later. Since this is not an unboxing video, I don't want to take too much time for that. But as you already guessed it, the miniatures that we have over here, and again, this is just the prototype, are pretty cool, just as expected from Awaken Realms, I guess. Now, in order to win the game, we need to perform, again, these rituals in order to place a seal at the center of the ring. That is the only winning condition that we have in Asylum. But for losing, we have 3 conditions. So first of all, if any one of our agents is going to die during the game, that means that we have failed. Also, if we need to resolve an event card and we don't have any more of those on the board, that means that time has run out, and also we're going to lose the game. And the third losing condition is if we are instructed to place one of these rifts into the world and we don't have any more rifts in the general supply. That means that the worlds have already been merged into one another and we lost the game. So here the bad guys that are called the Fiends, that are being led of course by the Monarch itself, are going to try and merge the 2 worlds in order to bring chaos from the below world into our world. And our job as those special agents of the agency below is to close these rifts by again performing these rituals. So after we covered this, let's talk a little bit about how the game loop is going to work and how does a turn is going to look like. For that, if you'll allow me, I'm going to a little bit destroy what you can see right now, and I'm going to place the player board on the main board. So here we have one of the characters that are available in the prototype that is called, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Kazu Nakamura. Again, hopefully I'm not mistaken too much, but let's see how the player board is actually constructed. So of course, that is the general player board, and we have this type of tile that is going to be placed over here. Again, this is a prototype, and this is one of the components that probably is going to change, but for now, this is what we can see. We have here the action track that I'm going to talk about in just a few more seconds, and we have some stats that correspond to the character itself. Now, on top of that, we have some cards over here that are going to come into effect when we are starting to take injuries, and we have some special cards that will allow us to perform different actions and will just help us the more we're going to grow with the character. So yes, characters here are going to improve during the game. Now, we also have here this special item that belongs to this specific character. The other character, Oliver, the conductor that we have in this prototype, has two cats that are going to do some crazy things around the board. But in general, let's go back again to talk about the actions. So on your turn, and the first player is going to be the one with this token that also has something cool that we can do with it. More about that just in a few more moments. And I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but be patient, you guys, be patient. So on your turn, you will be able to perform some actions. Now, if you are familiar a little bit with Stalker, the board game, of course, that was published also by Awaken Realms, designed by Pavel Samborsky, then you're a little bit more familiar with this system, let's call it like that, with this mechanism of actions. So every time that you're performing an action, pay attention to the symbol that is kind of a full diamond blue symbol. You will just perform the action and going to slide this marker one step down. And when you're reaching to the third action, then you will need to draw and resolve something that is called a shimmer card. Those are the cards that we can see over here. You're going to take it and resolve it. We have different effects with these cards. Some of them are called to shift. That basically means that we're going to move from one world to the other. Doesn't matter if it's from the below to the above or vice versa. And pay attention, this is something that I probably failed to mention, that both of these worlds are mirroring to each other. So you can kind of see the layout, that the rooms that we have over here are exactly the same rooms that we have on the other side. And yes, these tiles that are constructing the board are pretty much modular. So in the beginning, you will need to kind of randomly place the above world, and then according to what we have over here, we're going to have the same room in the below world. So let's talk a little bit about the different actions that we can take. Again, guys, I'm not going to dive too much into the rules, but I think it's kind of important to understand how the game works. So the first and most basic action that we have is movement. And let me again draw your attention to what we have on the player board, because the amount of rooms that we'll be able to move is actually limited by the marker that we have over here. In our case, for example, this character will be able to move 2 rooms. So rooms are, I think I don't really need to explain it, but just the spaces that are separated by these walls. And even if we have rooms that are being constructed from more than one tile, still only the walls are the ones that are separating. So if, for example, I'm looking over here and we have this entire room, even though it is constructed by 2 different tiles, it is still considered to be one room. So of course we can move one room and then a second room. It's just an example. If we're going to move into a room with one of these fiends, one of our enemies, then we're going to resolve something that is called opportunity attack, which maybe is a little bit more familiar from the Nemesis world, just for example. That is one basic actions that we can take. And also, if we're going to spend some stamina, that means that if we're situated in a room with a rift, we'll be able to move to the other world. So if I'm situated on the above, I'll be able to shift to the room of the below. And that is, of course, still considered to be one movement. Another action that we have is called Banish. That is kind of our attack. This is one of the ways that we'll be able to interact with our enemies, with the fiends. So according to the number of dice that we have over here, we'll be able to see what is the different effects that we'll have. Sometimes it will be to do damage, and sometimes we'll be able to push the enemies from a room to a different amount of rooms. Again, it depends on the roll of the dice that we have. And the amount of damage that we will need to do is actually written on the enemy cards themselves. Also, another thing that I'll be able to do using stamina is actually reroll any amount of dice that I would like. I will still need to declare it in advance, and I will be able to do it only one time. But that is one of the ways to mitigate like a bad roll that I have. Again, it doesn't really matter because I don't want to dive too much into the rules, but that's another possibility that you have. Another action that we might do is to close a rift. That is something that we can do if we are situated in a room that has a rift, and the other agent, or at least one more agent, is situated in the same room but mirroring to the one that we are situated in. So in our case, it will be this thing, and that means that we'll be able to close a rift, which is something, of course, that is a positive effect. The last regular action that we have in this game is to prepare. That means that we'll be able to regain one of our stamina and also the potential, which is another kind of resource that we'll be able to have in this game. And also we'll be able to start picking up some of the items that we have in the different rooms. Now, on top of that, we have a bunch of more actions, but that actually correspond to more of the character cards that we have. So we'll be able to unlock more cards as we progress in the game. And also with this special sword that this character has, we'll be able to kind of gain more power with it. And then at some point we'll be able to release the power of the sword and just perform whatever effect we have next to this cube, next to this marker, and everything that we have below it. So again, we said that once this marker is hitting all the way down, and I don't know if you paid attention, here we have the possibility to unlock a fourth action. So that is something that is pretty strong. Of course, from going from 3 actions to a fourth one, that's pretty nice. So that will allow us to perform one more action. And as I've said before, once we have done that, we're going to resolve one of these shimmer cards, and the other player is going to have also the 3 actions, just like we've seen before. But unlike Stalker, each character is going to perform all of the actions before we're going to move on to the other character. Now, after both of the characters have finished taking their actions, we're going to move to the next phase that we have, and that is the event phase. Now, in the event phase, we will need to draw one of these cards. So we will draw the next event card. We have here 3 chapters, chapter 1, 2, and 3. And obviously, the more advanced we are with the chapters, the stronger the effects are going to be. So again, without diving too much, let's just read one card and see how it goes. So we're going to start rotating these wheels, these rings that we have in the middle. We're going to start shifting fiends from one world to another. Then they're going to start moving either to the closest agent, for example, or actually the player that has this token is going to be the primary target. So sometimes when we're instructed to move towards the primary target, that means the player that is holding this. But I've mentioned before that this token has actually another effect or another thing that we'll be able to have with it. And if we would like, because that is our strategy, for one player to pass it to another player, that is something that is possible. We just need to resolve one shimmer card, and then we'll just need to pass it to the other character, flip it, of course, and that is something that will allow the other character to perform their actions before we are going to perform them. Then we're going to have some sort of an effect. On this card, it says each agent in range 1 from a rift is going to resolve a shimmer card. So again, I think that it's a little bit pointless to go over everything that we have, since this is not a how to play. But again, something that is important is that the rings are going to start moving. Now, what is a bit more special about this game, or what is different, is that the rituals that we're going to perform. So, for example, when I need to take an item card, let's take one of this card, I will be able to either take the item that we can see and of course use it later, or I will be able to discard the item and actually take the ritual component that we can see at the top left corner of the card. So that is something that actually each agent is going to start with one ritual component of each type. We have here some candles, this dual skull, and also this cool book. And those things are going to help us to perform 2 things. First of all, some of the actions that we'll be able to do are going to actually be enhanced and have more possibilities or more effect that they're going to contribute if we're situated in a room with one of the components, and sometimes if we're actually going to receive another bonus or a stronger one if we are interconnected to more components. That means if we have more components of the same type in a room, or they're just connected with the different rooms where we are situated. I know it's a little bit hazy, maybe my explanation, but I hope that you can actually understand what I'm talking about. On top of that, we can see over here on this card some rituals that we'll be able to perform in order to start placing the seals in these rings. So every time that we're going to follow some instructions over here, we have the main ritual that we will need to perform that will give us the possibility to start closing down these seals and receiving different bonuses that you can see printed inside those rings. So for example, that will be one of the ways that we will be able to upgrade our character, have more movement, roll better dice, etc. And also on top of that, we'll have some bonus opportunities, okay, that will be able to, again, fulfill more conditions in order to close more seals or gain more bonuses. Now, if we're going to completely ignore these optional steps, then maybe it will be easier, but the time is going to run out very quickly and we will not manage to actually perform the ritual to close the main seal. But also, if we're going to be a little bit too greedy and try to perform every time all of them, then again, we're going to spend too much time. So it's really all about keeping the balance between closing down the rifts and performing more of those, or see what is the chapter that we're actually at and to see if we have more time. So now let's talk about other stuff that we have in this game. Of course, this is one of the monarchs that we're going to have in Asylum. So maybe think about it a little bit like Nemesis, where you have different types of queens, if that makes sense. And of course, now we have only 3 types of these fiends. We have the nurse, which is the character that we can see over here, not character like the enemy. And also we have these skinwalkers, and also we have the needle claw. So that is the bigger figurine that we have over here, which is pretty intimidating. But the miniature is pretty cool, to be honest with you. I really like it. So of course, with the game itself, maybe I'm a little bit speculating, but I think this is what is going to happen, is that with different monarchs, we're probably going to have different enemies, so they will be able to interact in different ways. The monarch itself is in the game is going to start, let's call it a little bit sleepily, okay? They're going to start not at their full power, and the more the game progresses, actually we'll be able to, or the monarch will be able to unlock more of its powers. They will be able to move a little bit more, to attack in a more dangerous way, and so on. On top of this, on the map itself, maybe it's a little bit difficult to see right now, we have these different icons that by themselves, they're not doing something, but sometimes some effects will be able to perform or to have only if we are situated in a room that have those symbols. So we can see like the eye, or we can see something else like this kind of star that we have, or even if we're like in an operation room, let me find one, voila, like this one. So actually the room where we are situated is to some degree going to affect some of the actions that we have. So one of the things that actually hints that we're going to have more monarchs is that we have here this monarch activation deck. So I'm guessing that that is going to correspond only to this one. And the more monarchs we have, the different cards we will have for the activation. Also, we have here the monarch attack. So really, it kind of reminds us what we saw in Nemesis with the different types of queens. So another thing that we have over here is that each enemy has not only one side for their card, they have also another side that is called enraged. So some effects will tell us that if the card is on the not enraged, we'll need to flip it to a more dangerous side of that specific enemy. So the difficulty, as you can understand, is just going to go up from one step of the game to another. So the more game progresses, yes, we can evolve our characters and be stronger, but also the game is going to present more challenges as we're trying to perform these rituals and close the final seal of the game. So I think that this is pretty much covers the surface of what we have with Asylum Below, the board game. Pretty excited to see more enemies that are going to come into the final version of the game, and I promise you that once we have the final version of the game, the final prototype, I will have for you a full how to play game, so you'll be able to understand if this game is for you or not. And that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I hope that you learned something new or saw something that you like. Take care, and I'll see you next time.